So today, I'm going to tell you a story, and it's about possibly the worst student pilot I've ever come across. And I want this to be a lesson for everyone of who not to be if you're an aspiring student pilot or a current student pilot or heck, any pilot out there. So let's get into it. All right, so to get into this, we're going to talk about some stuff up front before we get into the story. I promise it's not going to take long, and you're going to see exactly how this fits into the story. So, in your early training, you learn about the 5 hazardous attitudes of flying. They are anti-authority, impulsivity, invulnerability, macho, and resignation. The student we're going to talk about today, well, he triggered 4 of them before we ever stepped foot in an airplane. So, let's talk about it. So, earlier this year, I got a text message from an aspiring student pilot. This person wanted to go and buy their airplane, and they wanted to come and do training with me. And as I do with everyone, I'm going to have some opening questions. I kind of want to find out your why and what the goal is, all of this, timelines, availability, what you're looking to get out of everything. I kind of want to get a feel for you as a student. And there were red flags that went off everywhere immediately for me with this person. We hadn't met. It was our first conversation. Person didn't have an airplane at the time. Didn't want to rent because they're going to buy their own airplane, but weren't going to start anything, any training, until they bought their airplane. Fine, cool, whatever. Immediately asking me when I would be willing to sign them off for solo flight. What? This guy doesn't have an hour in his logbook. Now, person's been in airplanes and small airplanes and stuff like that and flown with friends, but never with the flight instructor. So there is not a recorded hour in a logbook anywhere, and is already asking to be signed off for solo. Well, I'm sorry, that's not how this works. You are going to do training, and there's a whole list of maneuvers we have to get through per the FAA before you can be signed off for your solo flight. Plus, you have to pass the pre-solo written exam that is given by your CFI. So I told him, I was like, sorry, I'm not discussing that with you until we see how you fly and you show me that you're proficient and you can handle this checklist that the FAA puts out there that you have to do, which is pre-solo. And it's basically all of the maneuvers with stalls. So you got to do your turns around a point, you got to do S-turns, you got to do stalls, takeoffs, landings, short field, soft field. Pretty much everything you need to do for your check ride, you need to do prior to your first solo to be able to handle it. So we have to go and do those things. And mind you, I still haven't met this person yet. Well, immediately when I pushed back on that and said we have to do all of these things, it became a major issue for this person. And they began lashing out and telling me I don't know what I'm doing as an instructor and this is how we're going to do things. And it was like, it really made me kind of take a step back and be like, I don't know. Like, I'm very picky about who I will take on as a student. And listen, if you're the biggest a-hole in the world, but you're coachable, I'll still help you if I can. This person was showing, though, like I said, red flags from number 1. So, right there, that's anti-authority. Hazardous attitude number 1. Doesn't want to follow the rules. doesn't want to listen to me, just wants what they want, and they're going to get how they want. And they're going to get to there however they want, whether that's with me, around me, or through me. That's basically the gist of what I got of what this person was pushing for. So I was like, all right, hazardous attitudes in students, it's kind of a normal thing. You'll get like one here or there. I've seen 2 hazardous attitudes in students before, and we've been able to kind of work through those. So it was a red flag, yes, but it wasn't a terrible red flag for me. So we continued talking. At that point, I was asked, what is my rate that I charge per hour? So I told the individual what my rate is, and the individual wanted to negotiate my rate. Now listen, I have a background in real estate. I am used to defending my rate and negotiating and stuff like that. So that's not anything new with me. And I told this individual the same thing I told my real estate clients when I sold real estate. This is my rate. If that doesn't work for you, that's totally fine. I'm sure someone else will work for less. This is my rate. That's what it is. Take it or leave it. So the individual decided to take it at that point in time. They were good with my rate. But that lasted a whole 3 hours. Then I started getting text messages back, be like, oh, well, hey, instructor B says they'll charge me this, and instructor C says they'll charge me this. Coming back and fighting the rate again some more. Again, not a big red flag to me. I'm used to it with my background. But still, it was like, we've already agreed on this. And I told him, I said, if you want to go with someone else because they're charging less than me, by all means. It's not going to hurt my feelings. Have a blast. So, again, person says, all right, cool, we'll move forward. Let's get ready. I'm working on a plane. I found a plane. I'm going to buy the plane. We're going to get the plane. Okay, cool. So, person goes dark for, I don't know, maybe a month or 2. I didn't think anything of it. I was like, all right, you found someone cheaper. That's where they went. Then I got a message out of the blue again from this individual saying, hey, I got my plane. We got to go pick it up. And I'm going to, and we're going to fly it back together. And it's going to be recorded for cross-country hours. And I can sign them off for solo at the end of that flight. So here we are again. We're back to the anti-authority of the original issue that I took with this person. So again, I was like, hey, you know what? That's not how this is going to work. We can discuss flying the airplane back together and counting it towards hours. But I need to know what's going on with the airplane. I have to make sure I'm familiar with the airplane, the type of airplane, the avionics, everything like that. And I said, which I tell everyone, is I'm happy to go and get the airplane and bring the airplane back for you. We can do all that stuff. But if there's anything I am unfamiliar with or uncomfortable with, A, it becomes a solo flight, me only, because I'm not going to deal with something new or something I'm not 100% certain on and a student pilot on top of it. I said, but if it really gets to the point, I'm just going to refuse the airplane. I'm not going to go and hop into something that I have no experience in or anything like that. I'm not going to talk about the type of airplane because, again, I don't want to put the person or their name out there on blast. If they see this video and they come across it, they're obviously going to know I'm talking about them. Oh well, too bad, so sad. But again, so we're back in the anti-authority. There was a lot of impulsivity with it, so it's making hasty decisions without prior consideration of the consequences and stuff like that. So I mean that can kind of be wrapped into the forcibly wanting the solo flight stuff. Macho came into it, and invulnerability came into it also later, with again pushing for solo flight and different flight training and scenarios and how we were going to do training and what training we were going to do. So he comes back to me as like, well, hey, you know what? I don't want to train on this. Nobody does this anymore, so we're just going to do this. And basically telling me how the training program is going to go. Again, that's a no. That's not how this works. I am the flight instructor. It's going to go how I say it goes, in line with the FAA, or you're not getting my signature on anything you want in your logbook. At the end of the day, I'm going to protect myself and my certificates above you. I'm sorry, that's just the reality. I've paid too much. I've put too much time into this. If I'm going to sign off on you, it's because I'm confident in you, not because you try to bully me into it or you badger me or anything else. That's not how this works. I'm not risking my credentials or my certifications for someone that doesn't want to listen and has now on multiple occasions shown me hazardous attitudes and no willingness to learn. So as I pushed back on more of these things, the individual really kind of notched up on the way they were handling things, to where they would start to insult me and all kinds of different things, demeaning to me of my business, everything else. I was like, all right, cool. At that point in time, I had seen enough. I said, I am done. So I messaged the person back. I said, hey, listen, you know what? I apologize, but I'm not going to be the flight instructor for you. We're not going to be a good fit. So I said, here's a couple names and phone numbers. These are some other flight instructors. Reach out to them. See if they might be a better fit for you. Well, it turns out that those flight instructors that I recommended, this individual did reach out to. And they had the same reservations that I did without us even talking about it. So those individuals then had messaged me, not knowing I had already talked to this individual, and be like, hey, there's this individual. This is what's going on. What are your thoughts on this situation? And I immediately responded back with, is it so-and-so? And they both responded back with, why, yes, it is. And I said, I already refused that individual and refused to train them because of A, B, C, D, E, and the long list that I derived through our conversations. So I said, I recommended you, which is probably how this individual got your name and number, to see if they might be a better fit for you. It's not someone I'm willing to help and train. Maybe you would be. Maybe you can get through to this person. I couldn't. So turns around that now the two of them have refused to help this individual. So now that's 3 flight instructors in the area that have refused this individual. Well, the individual goes and somehow finds a 4th. So that 4th, well, let's back up there. Before this individual gets to the 4th flight instructor, one of the flight instructors I had spoken to reached back out to that individual and been like, hey, listen, I heard everyone refused you. Here's why we all refused you, so that way you can correct this attitude going forward in the way you're going to approach things. Apparently the person listened, because when they found that 4th flight instructor, it was a completely different person that showed up and talked to them. I found all of this recently, which is much later than my interactions with this individual. So that 4th instructor went out there and started doing flight training with them. And they got through. This individual earned their solo endorsement. Then they started getting into check ride prep and their cross countries, and the facade fell, I guess is the best way I can put it. The act went away to where the person that I originally met started coming out on this 4th instructor while doing cross-country training, because they didn't want to learn paper charts, they didn't want to learn paper nav logs, they just wanted to fly the magenta line, because that's what pilots do these days. And I guess it became some big to-do between the two of them, and instructor number 4 finally said, enough is enough, especially after we ran into each other and we had a conversation about this. Things started making sense and started kind of falling into place for instructor number 4. So instructor number 4 fired him. Walked away like the 3 of us did prior and said, we're not going to teach you. So now this individual is without an instructor again. Obviously hasn't fixed any of their attitude problem, because, well, I got another text message. And I know other instructors got other text messages too. So what we found out through talking to each other, because, well, we talk to each other, we try our best to protect each other because we're all kind of doing our own thing. And we want to make sure we protect ourselves and our certificates. So we were talking back and forth, and apparently this individual is constantly would be told one thing by his instructor and not like what he was told. So then he would go and start trying to source other instructors to see if he can find someone to go against what the initial instructor said, so that way he could fight and push back and try to get what he wanted. So obviously these hazardous attitudes in this individual never disappeared anywhere. So again, it became this whole thing. I ended up getting a message again, and the person asked me, he's like, hey, can I call you? I got some questions and stuff like that. And I responded back flat to the point. I said, I am not your CFI. I will not help you. I am sorry. And I said, your hazardous attitudes previously have proven to me that you are not someone that I can teach and I can help. I am not going to do it. And then I also put in there, just that way the person knew, is I look at being a flight instructor as having two parts to my job. Number one, first and foremost, is to teach people to fly an airplane. That is my main job. I feel, and I could be wrong on this, but personally I feel my second job as a flight instructor is to gatekeep this industry from people that have no business being in this industry, because they're dangerous to themselves and they're dangerous to each other, and they're not showing a willingness to change and fix that. For me, this individual falls into that category. So I told him, I was like, for these reasons and every other reason I've told you over the past, 6 to 8 months, I will not help you. I will not train you. My name will never show up in your logbook. So this person, I guess, continued looking. Now they've found a fifth flight instructor, and this one is about an hour away. So I guess they got their solo endorsements to fly back and forth to meet with that instructor to go and continue their training. I don't really know. I just found out about this because it's that brand new. I feel bad for that flight instructor that just picked this individual up, because they don't know what they're walking into and the type of person that they're going to deal with. I hope sooner rather than later they figure it out, so that way they can either, maybe they have luck and they can correct it, or they walk away and they protect their certifications also. Again, I don't enjoy doing this to people. I don't enjoy gatekeeping the industry. I don't enjoy telling people, no, I won't help you. But this is definitely the first person that I've come back and I've said, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I will not consider this. I will not help you, no matter what, moving forward. Other people that I've said no to, I've given them the reasons, and some of them have changed the way they do things, and they've come back, and I've started helping them. Again, it all comes down to being teachable and coachable about this. This isn't something you can kind of bully your way through, and that's what this person is attempting to do. And again, I'm not making this video as an attempt to bash this individual or anything like that. I am making this video in hopes that this reaches other potential flight students out there or other pilots out there that have a tendency to act those certain ways or be that, because I want this to be a lesson. Like, this isn't the right way. This isn't how you go and do this. I want you to be successful, so come into this with an open mind. Be coachable, be teachable, be willing to learn. Just coming in and just kind of forcing your way through everything and telling people that what you're going to do and what you're not going to do as a student is not going to get you very far. And if you do get very far, it's not going to be very fast, because you're going to be in the same situation as that individual, where they're now on their fifth flight instructor that I'm aware of. There could have been more. I don't know. Again, I know myself and I know the 3 others. And now I know there's someone new about an hour away. Again, I don't know. I hope this person does better and gets better. But again, I wanted to make this video and tell this story about what's going on with this individual. Just again, as a notice out there for other people, so that way you can see, like, hey, these people are out there. But again, I want it to be something so that way you take away from this, like, hey, be coachable when you come in and you learn this. So I'm not going to go too much more in depth into everything with this. I'm going to wish that individual well. I hope they come around and they learn to be coachable. And I hope they get to where it is that they want to go. And for everyone else out there, I hope you take a piece away from this that, like, hey, this isn't the way to be. Come in, eyes wide open, be willing to learn, go through the process, trust the process, and you'll get to where you want to be. So that's all I'm going to have for this story time, I guess we can call it, here on the channel. And we'll move on and we'll get back to our regular videos, I guess, coming up. So I'll see you on the next one.